my goodness. How are we doing? I am not muted. I know that this has got to be a camera button around here somewhere. Oh, there it is. Whoops. Hello, everyone. You caught me reading too late. This happens sometimes where I get lost in love, and I don't know much. Thinking about touch, back on my feet. Something, right? Happy Thursday, October 10. 4 days until you guys get to tell me I'm wrong. I haven't forgotten. I've been sort of nervous. I've been like, man, I said that I think something interesting is going to happen on or around 10:14. Remember that? And I've just looking at the card. If we want to read it quite literally, it's going to be something involving. Hey, put that down. You put that down. All right, someone out there, a dog just tried to grab that thing that they shouldn't have, and I just took care of it for you. Just always looking out for you guys. James, you shouldn't have so much confidence. When you have that much confidence, it's wrong. And now you're able to contact people's pets and keep them from touching things they shouldn't do it. And you have no right to do that, James. No right at all. That's kind of where we're at. But, oh, good. Audio's good. Thanks, Nate. Good to see you. Yeah, I thought I knew the words to that, Adrian. I didn't. I thought that I knew the words, and I did not. But, what was I talking about? I was, yeah, there's a dog telepathy. You guys already know that. You've already heard that. But I was reading today, and I lost all track of time. Today's maybe going to be sort of a mishmash episode. There's been a couple of questions that have been asked, and it's an opportunity to talk about them. Thank you for coming back. Those who are back, and those of you who did not come back, thanks for not being here. I do not appreciate you being here because you're not here. And I don't know why that happened, but we'll find out. Hey, I already got a super chat. Thanks for the super chats. Some of you guys have sent me some prizes for surviving a hurricane, and thank you very much for that. That's really appreciated. Thank you. I have towels today. Oh my god. Oh god. Oh, they arrived. I opened them up. I did not. Some of you were like, "You're gonna wash that new piece of fabric, James. You're gonna wash that before you wear it, right?" I'm always like, "Yeah, of course I am. What do you think I'm a dude that would unwrap a shirt from a Costco bag and put it on my body, and then just like walk around, just like, yeah, you think I'm some kind of like animal? God, are you kidding? I would never do that. Never. And even more importantly, I wouldn't take a brand new terry cloth towel from Amazon. Something I've been dying to have since the whole, hey, let's have a hurricane. That was a fucking mess. So when the hurricane happened, I was laying in bed, and quick recap, and a bedroom window crashed. It actually broke on my bed. I was under the covers. It was totally fine. But also it was kind of like, well, that was pretty fucking rude. And then I thought that was the extent of my problems, was that my bedroom window was broken. And that's not that big of a deal. It kind of sits high up. I kind of have these little easements, Adams vents, easements that hang over the house. And, I was like, hey, I'll just put a blanket up. In fact, the blanket's still up. I need to really fix this. Honestly, I told myself, if I can just get fucking towels in this house again, we'll get to other things like windows and stuff. And, it turns out my big picture window that I sometimes will stream out of from my porch, that thing also came out in the storm. That thing did not break, which is really great because I had to drive like a really long way to get that large piece of covering. And anyway, so that really worked out. But there was like 3 or 4 inches of salt water on the floor. I'm not kidding. I noticed right away the how funky the rug that I had in my den smelled. Like, first of all, there's no way to dry it. But when all that happened, I grabbed the towels. I was half awake. It was still dark. I grabbed the towels to try and mop up the things. My laptop was floating in some of this water. I so lucky. Oh God, so lucky that that worked out. That the laptop was safe. A lot of fortune, really, a lot of fortune all around. But I used all those towels except for one. I was smart enough to tell myself, well, you're gonna keep yourself having one towel. And then like a freaking couple days later, oh man, it's still power's still out. And I'm walking around my house just trying to like, you know, survive without electricity, trying to figure out how long this is going to last, kind of wondering, is everybody okay? No cell coverage, none of that other stuff. And I had been smart enough to save myself a towel, and freaking refrigerator starts leaking. You know, there's a lot of cold things in there. And now they don't want to be cold anymore. And then I start to realize, fuck, I'm gonna have to throw away all this food. You know, and so I did. But before that, the refrigerator kept leaking on the ground, and I kept walking through it with my socks. It was really starting to like, I gotta admit, my low point was when I had like 8 pairs of socks lined up in front of the fireplace, and all of them were trying to dry socks because I just kept stepping in that water. The water it's just a key place where are there people even so interested in this story? Anyway, I took my last towel. I threw it down on the kitchen floor. I instantly regretted it. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Dude, you don't have a fucking towel anymore. Man. And then vagrants are like, you can use a sheet. And, you know, just, God, you know you're living in a fucking crack house when people are like, yeah, just dry off with a sheet. But anyway, oh man, it took this long to get towels here. The National Guard got here. Electric company got here. Linemen from Canada came down here. And there's just no fucking way anyone's going to bring a fucking terry cloth towel. That's not. Anyway, I've had that towel. It's great. I had a first shower. It's my first shower since the event. And I don't want to go that long anymore without a towel. So, yeah, I'm going to shrink wrap some towels, I think, you know, have them stowed away maybe. Also, my refrigerator, I'm not a fan of my refrigerator anymore. I think it's a poorly designed, really ill-tempered, bad idea. That's what I'm saying. So, you guys still here? Dry off with a flannel. Yeah, listen to you, Alicia. You're like, oh, you know, why don't you just open your closet full of excess flannel shirts and use one of those? Yeah, I thought of that. I don't have excess flannel shirts. I have one flannel shirt. It has no elbows in it, and the armpits are missing. I like wore it for so many decades that there's no elbows and armpits. But I've kept the flannel shirt because I don't want to be like, oh, I don't have a flannel shirt because Alicia might want to come over and need to take a shower, and I will need to have a flannel shirt. You know, it's we look out for each other. We do. So all that said, oh, thank you, Marty. Good. I'm glad it wasn't hard to get to the post office. Marty got his book order, but it came at the worst. You had to wait a whole 8 days before I could even print the the shipping label. I couldn't. My printer does not like running on battery. It's like, dude, I cannot. And like most motors, it's just the startup. I bet once that printer could start, it probably would do fine on battery. But my battery got a lot of walking around for 9 days. It took a while. So, yeah, it's actually I'll give it to you. Flannel shirt's a good idea. I didn't actually think of that, but honestly, my flannel shirt, I would just, man, I don't know. Sometimes you just look at yourself and you're just like, how did I end up here? And I feel like when I'm drawing myself with a flannel shirt that has no underarms, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. So, anyway, let's see. It was oh good, infinite wisdom. See that stream yesterday. Was another sort of random thing. I actually don't have a lot of random things here today. I actually wanted to part of the while. It's been a while. I majored in Eastern religion it was a minor actually. One of my favorite books is probably still is honestly. I haven't thought about this book in too long, and prepping for the show, I was just like, oh my god, the Tao Te Ching. I fucking love this thing. I just love it, and it's such a beautiful book because it's more of like a puzzle. I think it's a mental puzzle, and the mental puzzle leaves you sort of like an aerobic exercise in thinking. It's the book of the way, written by Lao Tzu. The basically just means old man, and you could say sage if you want, but it probably just means old grumpy man. To be honest, it's probably the beginning of it was an old grumpy man that's like, I don't want to go to church. It's like, well, but Lao Tzu, you have to go to church, and he was like, I don't want to go to church. I don't want to participate in society. You guys piss me off all the time. All you do is whine. I just want to woo wee, man. I just want to woo wee. And you're like, dude, are you okay? He's like, woo wee. And you're like, okay, we'll leave you alone, Grandpa. We'll leave you alone. And he starts writing this shit down. And, but he can't just write it down. He can't. And when to really date myself, I studied Eastern religion when Burma was a country. Hey, look at that. My guy's old as fuck. What happened? He remembers Burma. But yeah, it used to be a country of Burma. And I think it was like Theravada Buddhism is like really big. One of the biggest things there. And when you study, I do not know my shit. I don't. But when you do study over there, you find out that for whatever reason, China, which totally could have taken over India, they could do it tomorrow. And that China has always been like, we don't want to fuck with you. There's certainly a lot of mountains that have a say-so in that. I'm not at all dismissing the geography. But China, you will find, is a place that understands place. It knows its place. And I have put forward a few times on this show that I believe that Buddhism itself, actually, I've given Buddhism a really hard time. I think not. I don't think I've been fair. I don't think I've been fair. And I know why I haven't been fair, but I still don't think it's been fair. And I don't think that you guys are even going to necessarily maybe watch the content today and even think I'm still being fair because of how subtle this is. But we'll just try, okay? We'll just see what happens, okay? I've put forward that I believe Buddhism is one of the most communistic, socialistic systems that you can have. That it breeds a sense of you will own nothing and be happy. And it seeks to control a populace. I've said that. I'm saying that now because I don't want you to think I don't own that. I also think that it's a fucking brilliant idea. Especially since this last storm, I read Burning the Buddha. I'm still reading it, I should say. Very difficult book to read. We'll get to that later. I told myself I have no right to bitch about reading a book that people set themselves on fire. Until I actually set myself on fire, I really can't complain about reading a book. So let me just take that back. We'll reel that back in right now. But this book, Burning the Buddha, really, really kind of put me in my place. I feel like I've been too hard on them. I was hard on them because during the entire gauntlet that you and me know is Corona, I think that self-reliance becomes crucial, and anything that leans towards communism or socialism, I'm gonna poke at right now. It's just a safety mechanism. It's a broad stroke. It's not even fair. It's not. And that's what's occurred. I've kind of been bashing Buddhism. And I'm not wrong. I'm actually not wrong to say that. What I mean is that the critiques that I have of it are in fact correct. There's no exaggerations. There's no nothing like that. The truth is that if you want to start a philosophy in China, if you want to print something, anything, and I don't just mean China, in Southeast Asia, if you want to print anything in Southeast Asia, if you want to spread the propaganda of the word, you are going to need emperor's approval. You're going to need that. And so when we look at the ancient texts that arose out of these places, you are going to find, whether you want to know it or not, and I would say most people do not know this, which is why I brought it up. And then I turned into a Buddha bully. Sorry. But before I was a Buddha bully, I brought this up because I said that I think that Western culture romanticizes Buddhism because we do not necessarily look at the state-run implications of such a system. These are the things that I've said. These are the things that I've maintained. Okay? And I'm still there. I don't think that you guys are going to be like, "Oh, I forgive you for being mean to Buddhism." I think you guys are probably going to, do what you want. It's cool. I can take it. I hope I can take it. I do my best. And yeah, well, thank you for being here, Rixie. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. This is an actual sculpture of Confucius in a, not me, but this guy. Really just, yeah, I'd love to be in the room with that. I'd love to be in the room with that. It's astounding. In the AI world, I was like, man, I don't know. I hope people know this is real. So I'm telling you it's real. Let's get started. There are 5 religions in China, technically, but really there's 3. There's just 3. Technically, there's like 28 or something. I'm just making up the number 28, but religion is not a fear in China. Religion has been granted plots of land. China itself is an atheistic nation. It's atheist. It's not. That doesn't mean it's not religious. And when you start to if you've ever decoded the flag of Tibet, if you've ever considered decoding the flag of Tibet, you're going to be met with 2 Shih Tzus, 2 lion dragons. Right? It's kind of cute to call them Shih Tzus though, because Shih Tzu actually kind of looks like it. In fact, if you trace the origin of the 2 dragons on the Tibet flag, you'll see it's actually Shih Tzu is kind of part of that. So the Tibetan flag is made up of 2 Shih Tzus. Who knew, right? Who knew? Who knew about the Shih Tzu? But there they are. These 2 guys are either fighting for a pearl or sharing the eminence of a pearl. Each of them have their paw on the pearl. And one of these dragons, Jews, Shih Tzus, I think, is the West and the other's the East. It's just how I'm not trying to say I'm the only one who interprets this way, but I don't have any it's like my Jew stuff, when I'm like, hey man, the word ha is this, and you guys are like, where'd you fucking get that? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. A wise Jewish man told me when I was making a sandwich. That's how I know these things. Okay, I'll just start saying that. It's okay. And in fact, Lao Tzu is kind of the perfect cover to put forward ideas in a state that's like, hey, what are you doing putting forward ideas? And this is what makes it so creative. They invented esotericism, and I'm trying to get there because Confucianism was not esoteric. Confucianism is like, look, dude, you got 3 rules. You got 3 virtues. First of which is Ren. It is the concept of symbiosis. You can see it in the characters itself. You have 2 platforms, one placed on top of the other. The bottom platform is just slightly larger. The conceptual idea here is understanding your place in the house. You can even kind of see that, can't you, inside the symbolism here. I'm telling you Ren means symbiosis. That's not a correct translation. It probably is something more akin to place. But if you just picture the word of symbiosis, the very, very first tenet of Confucianism is this idea of symbiosis. And symbiosis is a government plot. It is. You've heard me actually tell you I prefer. I just got a weird thing. We may not be online. We may be online. Hang on, just give me 1 second, guys. If we're online, just give me 1 sec. I just need a sec here too. Let me know in the text if you see this. And I've said banana. Some of you may not be able to spell banana, so if you just enter any fruit into the chat, that would help. We're just going to wait 1 sec. It looks like we're good. I just maybe had a weird thing there. Okay, I just saw a heart come up. That's probably, there's a 100. Okay, great. Hey, Linda. Symbiosis. We just covered symbiosis. All right, go. We got an orange. Orange came in first. Yeah, banana's hard to spell, guys. I'm 53. I can't fucking spell banana. I can't. Let me know in the comments if you don't have to make a comment about it. If you're too embarrassed and if you want me to take the fall for this as being the only person. Oh, we got some eggplants. We got some look at you guys are throwing icons. Look at that. Oh, see, Portafiner goes for the nanners. That's brilliant. And then you're not misspelling anything. That is good thinking. That is some good thinking. So we were discussing, is this main going to work anymore? No, it's not. Wait, there it is. We just talked about symbiosis, the concept of Ren. These are the 3 virtues of Confucius. And the second is Li, and it is what is proper. And if you look at, you misspelled it in spelling bee. I misspelled melancholy, Eric C. I misspelled melancholy. I lost the final round on the word melancholy in 4th grade. I don't want to talk about it. Anshu, you're a bitch. I'm just kidding. That's supposed to be funny because she's like 4th grader, Japanese girl, kicks my ass in spelling bee. And here I am telling you about Confucius right now. Even though she was Japanese, has nothing to do with it. That's pretty racist, James. But we're just going to keep talking to ourselves like you guys can't hear me. Happy Thursday. Hope you're doing good. Man, I had a terry cloth towel. Let me know if you think it helps the show better. Is me having a terry cloth towel helping? So the second virtue of Confucius is what is proper. And if you look at this, if you look at the symbol for that, it really does have this kind of properness to it, doesn't it? Like, are all your I's dotted? Are all your T's crossed? And so what is proper is more dealing with what is society, what is considered tradition. Proper and tradition would be very much the same. And you know that because what is correct is not actually what is proper. So the last virtue of Confucius is even telling you, hey, look, man, Li is not always correct. What you want is some Yi. You got to step away from the Li and into the Yi, right? But don't forget Ren. And that's Confucianism. So you have this idea that you belong to a symbiosis, you have a place in the world, and that in the place in the world, there is something that has been told to you that is proper action for you to do. And that sometimes what is correct and what is proper are not the same. And it is during those times when you activate the third virtue of Confucius. Now, this is a very healthy mindset because it does teach individual responsibility. It does show very clearly that, look, you can't always side with tradition. You will still be held accountable when you try and hide. So it is a upwardly mobile psychology, isn't it? It allows the interpretation of the individual. In fact, it's literally placed in the final step, which is, I think, a nod to the controllers, yes, the controllers of China utilizing Confucianism to grow a conscious crop. To grow a conscious crop. I am telling you that communism under this system is used in an upwardly mobile way to grow a consciousness, and that the state wanting you to grow a consciousness is not a flaw, that China has. Most of us think that a state, in order for it to control its people, would need to stop the growth of its people. This is a very widespread belief. A lot of truthers believe this. A lot of truthers insist that government must always want something bad or evil, and that they would never want to facilitate or have any kind of growth. And I disagree with that because I think that they've tried this before. I believe that they've tried this system many times before, and it simply doesn't work. And as far back as Rome, as far back as even the stories, I didn't say the actual, but the stories of the Exodus of Egypt, I'll explain why I said the stories of that later, but you're looking at a system where the tribe of Shazu was wanting to capitalize on being a slave, and then they noticed that they got too big for their britches, and they had a way, a new system of becoming patriarchal themselves, becoming self-run, and that the state would still want those people. In fact, a healthy state, like let's picture the Spartans, for example. Yeah, they're probably wearing banana hammocks. There's that. That's fine. But in addition to that, you have a state that literally is thriving on the strength, the ability for their individuals to thrive. I think we've missed how crucial this has been, at least in the past. I'm not trying to push it now, although I do think it's still there. We just don't want to give it credit. But a long time ago, the power of your centurion was directly proportional to the people that you pulled your centurions out of, right? That's your crop. So you want them to have wine, you want them to have calories, you want them to have abundance, because it's going to give you a richer place to pull your Manhattan, to pull the reeds from the ground, to make your bow, to hunt other people. So a state is only successful if it has an upwardly mobile kind of system, whether it be caste system or communistic system or religious cult or whatever. And it's not even fair to call China communistic. I think it's fair to call China symbiotic and self-dismissing on a, this isn't really just China, but the individual is illusory. It's not that the individual is disposable or bad, it's that it's illusory. And reading this Burning of the Buddha, which we'll get into as we go down this road, is showing you that there's the psychology, the Shih Tzus over there, the white dragon of the East, is a different crop than you and me. It is a crop that is, I used to think in an ignorant way that they didn't have the individual, but that's actually not the case. The individual is very strong, but it's much more transubstantiated. When Bodhisattva is the name of the person who is going to reach enlightenment. It is an identity, a name, a personhood that you enter into as you approach. Hence, old man, Lao Tzu, is the grumpy old man. I'm calling him grumpy because I think it would better venerate the way that the Lao Tzuian, the way the Taoist would feel about society at large. And the reason why China has 3 religions is because they can handle all 3 and give you 3 different modes of thought. You can be Confucianistic, which is very simplistic, very much by the book. You still have an avenue to grow psychologically through your practice of yi, and that when you lack the confidence to have yi, you are going to rely on your ren li, your symbiosis with your environment, but also your sense of what is proper, and that we have that now. That when younglings come up, they lack certain confidence that they gain later, and so their yi starts to express itself as we get older. This is giving you room in the greenhouse to grow, which is why I'm saying I think it's crucial for the government to do that. I don't need you to believe that Chinese emperors or any government at all is like doing this to be nice. They're doing this to survive. That's really it. And it's a constant battle of I want to give you space, but not too much space. I want to give you lead, but not too much lead. How do I maintain control over the state, but at the same time, how do I let you grow too? And let's be honest, China has had, I don't even know, I'm just going to throw this number out, 20,000 year head start over us. And when I say China, I'm really being broad. This is more the Vedas, the traditions in India, all the Adam and Eve stuff that we stole directly from India and moved, the concept of the lingam itself, even, and Priapus, all the things that we've constantly been taken from that area, just show you they had more of a bigger head start. And one of the largest areas that they had a head start on us on was the concept of longevity. You're dealing with kulpas now. You and me are living inside of a kulpa, which means at the Copacabana, you will live for 10 million years in the eon at the Copa. It's gonna suck. And this is more of, they've had 10,000, 20,000 years head start because they're already thinking in a non-moralistic way. And when you have a people that already has the idea that identity itself is illusory, but they live for millions of years, you've got a different crop of people. You had just a different thinking crop of people, right? And so controlling them, controlling your state, keeping them healthy becomes a much different thing. You can't simply shame the identity of someone because their identity actually changes. It's much like if you were to leave your house and get your first job at 15, your name would change. I'm not saying that literally happens, but I just want you to picture that the ubiquitous in society of someone who's simply set about on a different kind of posture would facilitate them choosing a different name. The moment that you set yourself on fire in a sacrifice of self-immolation outside your monastery, you cease to hold your former name. You have entered into a different form of identity. Two identities, one of which is that which is burning himself, but the other is that which is no longer alive here. Your identity is still intact. Your mortal body, i.e. your mortal name, is simply changed. This is a different mode, a different crop of people, as I've said before, and that different crop of people is going to require a different kind of philosophy. It's quite natural for us in the West to romanticize Eastern philosophy precisely because of us being a different crop, a different species. So I just want you to know that the pranic bump we get from it being exotic is more than just distance. It's almost like we're hacking into the psychology and kind of playing the best of both worlds. This is the modern day Lao Tzu on the right. Weird looking dude. Wang Huning. Everybody Wang Huning tonight. And he is basically on February 12th, 2022, he came out and did this speech here. But when he was young, when he was in his 20s, he came to America and I think he went to the University of Iowa. He stopped by Berkeley. He had a 6-month stint in America, really got to be disgusted by capitalism itself, and was brought back. And as soon as he returned, he wrote to the proletariat, let's call it, the communistic committees that existed. He enrolled as a communist, and 6 months later, he wrote a manifesto that was so congruent with how the nation felt, i.e. he's like a Jared Kushner kind of type person, but in China, and that he became the official voice, the official doctrine of modern day Chinese communism. And Chinese communism is really Chinese Buddhism. It's really Chinese Confucianism, or just Confucianism. And it's actually a little bit of Taoism too, because these things are saturated in a different way. China is an atheistic state that allows for the pop psychology of Taoism, Confucianism, and Buddhism to exist inside of it. Why would the most communistic or what we consider the most communistic, control-oriented state not have a mandated state religion? Have you ever considered that? My guess is no. We're not educated a lot about what's happening in China, but this should be interesting to you, because if you take the traditional tenets of what we think communism is, that this would be absolutely one of the lead places where they would want to instill something, and they have. The religious structures that you see there were built at a time where symbiosis and communism, I think, were the same thing. When consciousness needs itself, communism is very important. Now, I don't want you guys to swallow this, especially right after I tried to tell you that I don't think hurricanes are controlled by them. I know that was a big step for some of you. So I don't want to push you even more and say maybe communism isn't that bad, because I don't need us to adopt communism. I want less government personally. However, inside of a Shih Tzu that's rising from the East, this really is their version of freedom. Their version of what we would call the American dream. And in a lot of ways it is. The biggest problem that China faces is the biggest problem that America faces, and it's desire. It's desire. The most dangerous thing that people could have in America is a shared desire for a different form of government. This would be the most dangerous thing. In China, the most terrifying thought would be people fulfilling their desires. What is... Hang on a second. I haven't had time to put these into the order I wanted. What is the Four Noble Truths? Some of you are going to think I'm bashing Buddhism. I'm sorry. I don't think I am. I think if you really listen to this, you'll hear some deep truth here, because this shit's pretty dope. It really is. First truth, dukkha, the suffering. Life is suffering. Second truth, samudaya. I don't say this word enough. Second truth, samudaya, the origin of suffering. So the first truth is suffering. The second truth is the origin of suffering. The third truth, nirodha, the end of suffering. The third truth, the end of suffering. The fourth truth, magga. Magga, you heard me. The path to the end of suffering. And all these are, suffering is caused by desire. That's the first truth. That's not an exact translation. It's America's most popular version of that translation is suffering is caused by desire. And when you are trying to manage billions of people, desire is your greatest enemy. When you have a psychology, when you have a frontal lobe growing, your frontal lobe is going to want things. It's going to elicit desire. It's going to be like, hey, I want that thing over there. And this desire, if it doesn't have a frontal lobe, will lead to stealing. It will lead to theft. As the frontal lobe is developing, as the psychology of the frontal lobe is developing, and you are trying to create a village, just like we eliminate our olfactory gland to lie to each other through smell, so too could you adopt an idea that the most dangerous thing you can bring into the village is desire. It kind of makes sense. Having a 10,000, 20,000 year head start, you have the ability for a government and a religion to merge, not split, but to merge, to become so ubiquitously the same that you end up with a social structure that is pushing forward the eternal idea that the worst thing that you could ever do is have desire. In America, the worst thing you could ever do is have ego. The worst thing. The most dangerous threat we would have is if all of us were proud of ourselves and had more self-worth because we would not buy into professional wrestling stories on the news. I've been asked to register to vote on my cell phone now from at least 20 different phone numbers. I've blocked and spammed every one. I have told the state of North Carolina through an official form that I encourage all of you to fill out where you physically unregister to vote. And I believe that if more of us had more ego, that more of us would definitely go and unregister to vote, because it would be this call to not only your ego but your desire too, and it would be one of the most dangerous weapons that we could implement is our disinterest in the policies or the politics of it. I made this mention yesterday, but the more government sucks, the more we give it attention. And if we did not think government sucked, they would be desperate for our attention. So how do you do that? How do you move into that place when the entire society is shaming you into thinking for yourself or having too much ego or having too much pride? This is the only way you begin to think for yourself, is when you have an abundance of ego or an abundance of pride and you say, fuck it, I don't want to be a retard anymore. That's the ego saying, I am above this. And we have a society that shames the ego for the same reason why Theravada Buddhism developed the idea that suffering is caused by desire. And if you reject your desire, you will no longer suffer. And that the undercurrent of that is desire's bad, man. Ego's bad. This is the heart of my argument that in the West, we do not necessarily notice the subversive political control that's been inserted into certain religions. I think it's easier for many of us to see it in Confucianism. But when you try and apply that lesson and tell someone that Buddhism has the same control, it gets harder because of our romantic attachment to that religion, which I don't want to take away from you, especially after reading Burning the Buddha. In 396, one of the first recorded mentions of a Buddhist who, after reading the Lotus Sutra, we'll get more into this, but decides that the way that they would most manifest their conscious growth inside this kalpa. Keep in mind, you're dealing with people that think they live for 1,000,000 years. I don't mean think like to take it away. I'm saying that their mindset is, I'm here for 1,000,000 fucking years. This is a different kind of a throttle. The identity is suppressed, but the spirit is not. And what happens with that if you're not careful? If you're not careful, these people want more because they've been told that desire's bad, desire's bad, desire's bad. And I personally think that when you tell someone that desire's bad and they have an orca consciousness, they require a certain appetite for desire in my opinion, that in their quest to destroy the desire, they set themselves on fucking fire. And it changes the landscape. I don't have to tell you, but maybe no one suggested you do this, but picture it's a moonlit night. Picture you're in college. Picture the friend that you share biology class with and that you eat lunch with, and that you hear a crackling outside your window and you go outside and this student has voluntarily set themselves on fire and you're watching them burn as they're seated in a lotus position and they're reciting scripture. You are not the same person anymore. They're not the same person, obviously, but nor are you. You are not escaping that. You have been hit by a terrorist wormwood comet ball from fucking space, and it has struck your consciousness and destroyed the world that you used to have before this dude or woman, Stan, set themselves on fire, and you watched it under the moonlight. You are never coming back. The campus, the place where that happened, is surrounded with flowers. These flowers grow right out of the soil. The worms are thicker and more monstrous. The soil is blacker. The birds will never poop in that area ever again. The offerings that will come, the way the squirrels navigate around the sacred mandala of sand that's been laid by that event, is permanently felt and forever there. And one of the biggest problems China has is that they have to destroy the evidence. They have to destroy the evidence because this loco self-immolated himself, and now our entire piece of destroying this idea of desire has been sequestered. And now we're playing with marshmallows again. And so it begins. The Chinese ruler steps in and he goes up to Confucius. And he says, dude, what do we do about Buddhism? What do we do about Buddhism? And when you look at what Confucianism is, it is the direct response to these crazy fuckers. It is the return to Ren. It is the return to the right place. It is the return to knowing what is proper, installing and following your tradition. It is the elimination of spontaneity, a human right that I've argued that I think we have that's been taken away, is our right to spontaneity. That in order for people to elicit change on the government, they would need spontaneity to assemble, and that under the new protocols of FEMA, even the right to assemble has been delayed for 30 days, and that this is the rise of Confucianism. I think that when the Rockefellers were writing the General Education Board, they were looking at the model of China, and they were seeing that there is a benefit to raising farmers, to not having poets, to not having scientists, to not having deep thinkers. We want the base root people, and they do not need desire. And that you're looking, the one world government has the same plan because every leader who's in charge of people is wanting the same thing. So the one world government builds itself. It's seeking a model, and that model we could call is purely based on oppression. That's fine, but I think you're missing it. I think you're missing it because the government wants to succeed even more than you do. They do. I'm just saying, as the entity, the only reason for their survival is their proliferation inside your head. You can take government or leave it. Government is nothing without you. They have a deeper mode to try and succeed. I've said this, I don't expect you to get it, but a true one world government would be one where no one protests. How do you get there? Number one, you beat everyone. You just beat the shit out of them. And I think we've tried that, and I don't think it works. I don't think that suppression works because you end up with a bunch of retards, and you don't want the state anyway. The state bleeds itself out because the slaves are unable to feed themselves. You want a population. You want a population that has patriarchs that are responsible for everyone under their home. You want to just be able to handle the icons, the social figures, right? The Hollywood types, to move this. And these governments have been working for thousands of years. You and I have just been awake since 9/11, for example. I know some of you have been awake longer, but you get what I mean. Right? It's a completely different, we have a long way to go. We have a long way before we can catch up. And so these systems, they have to be great for the people, but they also have to be great for the rulers themselves. It has to satisfy both. It has to. And so when you start to unpeel Buddhism, the Kakavati Sutta, the wheel-turning emperor, you hear these stories. And I just want to read you a little bit of this because this is what China used to think. This is what China thinks. In the past, unskillful behavior was unknown among the human race. As a result, people lived for an immensely long time, 80,000 years. They were endowed with great beauty, wealth, pleasure, and strength. Over the course of time, though, they began behaving in variously unskillful ways. This caused the human lifespan to gradually shorten to the point where it now stands at 100 years. With human beauty, wealth, pleasure, and strength decreasing proportionally, in the future, as morality continues to degenerate, human life will continue to shorten to the point to where normal lifespan is 10 years. We will be 10 years old when we die. And we will reach sexual maturity at 5 because of how unskillful we will become. Among those human beings, the 10 courses of action have entirely disappeared. These are the 10 commandments. We'll get to that. And the word skillful will not exist, that we will lose the definition of skillful. First, we will gain unskillfulness, and unskillfulness will grow so much that we will lose the word skillful entirely. It will completely fall out of our vernacular. This is a very different model because in this model, we started off as perfect. We started off as 80,000-year-old Dharma giants. Our light was so bright that you could not detect the difference between sun and moon. And that over time, we developed the ability to be unskillful. And we got so good at being unskillful that we forgot how to be skilled at all. Those who lack the honorable qualities of motherhood, fatherhood, contemplativehood, or Brahmanhood will be the ones who receive homage. This sounds familiar, doesn't it? Fierce hatred will arise, fierce malevolence, fierce rage, and murderous thoughts. Mother of child, child for mother, father for child for father, brother for sister, sister for brother. Ultimately, conditions will deteriorate to the point of a sword interval in which swords appear in the hands of all human beings. Looking at subcutaneous little tiny daggers, but just saying that. And they hunt one another like a game. Who has cooties? Who has cooties? I will stab you with this tiny sword and inoculate you from such things. And when the slaughter is over, they will come out of hiding and resolve to take up a life of skillful and virtuous action again. With the recovery of virtue, the human lifespan will gradually increase until it reaches 80,000 years, with people attaining sexual maturity at 500 years old. Only 3 diseases will be known at that time. And what do you think the first disease is? It's desire. Desire. Yeah, it is some crazy shit, isn't it? Desire, lack of food, and old age will be the only things that the Maitreya or Maitreya, but it's interesting because it's spelled meta. And it's this concept of meta, ironically, means friend. And when you think about Facebook rebranding into Meta and it being the invention of, be my friend I'm not saying it was the very first one, but pretty much being my friend, I think you're looking at a very old Buddhistic tradition. In fact, I don't know if you guys remember this, but Facebook used to have that Buddhistic wheel. That wheel is the Eightfold Path, by the way, if you haven't seen this, but it's just a method of doing things rightly. And the Eightfold Path really is just ask your neighbor. So it's not that simple, but seriously, the Eightfold Path really is right action, right thought, right posture, right position, right. And all those things, I think that the word right really does imply your symbiosis, your Shen, your relationship to the Ren, your relationship to the Ren. And as long as you have instilled in society a relationship to itself, to society, you don't have the same kind of control structure that you would need for an American philosophy, a philosophy built on the self. This is not a philosophy built on the self. This is a philosophy built on the kalpa. It's a philosophy built on the eons that you live, and that you need the state. Because if you had the state and the state was good, this is definitely a big theme. The state has to be good. It's not permission for the state to be bad. A state only works in China under Confucianism, Taoism too, and Buddhism if the state is good itself. but that you need that state simply because you are coming in and out of kolpas at the speed of sound, and that you're going to need something more stable to help you embrace and find your dharma or your dhamma, depending on where you're at on this level, right? And to which way you're actually going, or how you're going to get there. And what constitutes a monk's long life? There is the case where a monk develops base of power endowed with concentration, founded on desire and the fabrications of exertion. What this means is the reason why you cannot stay alive for eons, that you and I could stay alive for 80,000 years right now, and the only thing stopping us is we want to go to the kitchen. We want to scratch. We want to check our mail. We want to mow our yard. We want things. And that at the base root of how to function, this Book of Kings, it's not called that, but this meta wheel dude, the ultimate friend, is telling you that you will live forever. All you have to do is stop wanting things. Who does this sound like? No longer will they regard anything as their own. They will have no possession, no gold or silver, no home, no relatives. They will, I love this sentence, they will have torn the net of the passions. Meaning you, when you tear the net of your passions, meaning you're no longer collecting passions anymore, right? You will live for 80,000 years. And it goes on to explain how you get there, what you got to do, all the other stuff, and we step into the Noble Eightfold Path. But it's the Noble Eightfold Path. Why is it the Noble Eightfold Path? Because it's connected to society itself. It's ingrained in there. It's a big part of it. So Buddhism really is a religion of place. How are you as wife? How are you as husband? How are you as friend? How are you as parent? How are you as teacher? And this is the same concept of Ren, of knowing your place. Knowing your place. When you know your place, the egoic mind is not even necessary in China because that's an illusion anyway. So this is just another sutta, it's another Buddhistic writing that's basically declaring itself as, I believe, as a kind of government, a symbiotic structure. The church is your relationship to your community. That's your church. And when you've instilled everyone as a relationship to each other, you build a structure that you don't even notice that it's politics, nor do you notice it's religion. And if you grew up in the West, you definitely don't notice it. I still think that there is so much honey to drink from Buddhism, especially after reading Burning the Buddha. This is me trying to defend Buddhism again. I just simply want you to know why I said what I said. Dhammapada. Happy is the birth of a Buddha. Happy is the teaching of the true Dhamma. Happy is the unity of the Sangha. And happy is the discipline of the united ones. This is the most beautiful emanation of one world government. Where we go one, we go all. This is the first call to think how much years we would live if we did not think that our government was wrong. That's at the heart of what this is saying. And it's built a structure that has allowed people, honestly, to set themselves on fire, to see themselves as in a spiritual journey here. And whether it be immolating themselves or practicing their satisfaction of desires, that you end up creating a conscious monastery that, quite frankly, blows away any other culture on earth, because the consciousness itself becomes the fruit of the nation. Did you hear that? The consciousness itself becomes the fruit of the nation. You could argue that America grows hearts, and those hearts are insistent on bravery and on freedom and on sacrifice and on service. They're growing the heart. And I think in China, they don't want your heart. They want your soul. They want your consciousness. And as long as you understand that you have eternal life here right now, see, China's offering the same thing. It's eternal life. 80,000 years is pretty close to eternal life, is what I'm arguing. That you're offering the same kind of promises, but only if you connect into the government. I think what really led more people to enlist in the American military was the fact that someone would remember them. That a long time ago, you being remembered, you having a grave, you having someone bury you and remember you is a huge fucking deal. Like the ultimate, you have made it. I can prove this because if you look at Rome, you see all the mourners and the processions of funerals, all the laws they had to pass to be like, would you please stop crying? He wasn't that great, and you're having to like pass laws to make chicks change their clothes, or even worse, make chicks wear black clothes because they're like, I didn't like him anyway. It's like, you will not say that. You loved him for 11 days. You will love him for 11 days. You will love him. These are 3 more verses. The wise ruler who provides for the needs of his people and rules with justice will earn their loyalty and trust. Thus rebellion will not arise and peace will prevail. That's the Kuttadanta Sutta. As long as the rulers meet regularly, act in harmony, and protect the vulnerable, the state will prosper and its people will remain loyal. Can I say it? That is the Mahaparinibbana Sutta. And the wise king rules with compassion, ensuring the welfare of all. His subjects seeking his righteousness are loyal and support his rule. That's the Jataka Tales. The Jataka Tales are fascinating when we start to get into the Lotus Sutra and the burning of the Buddha. But I wanted to prime you on this psychology so we can dive into the burning of Buddha and talk more about immolation going forward. There is a huge myth, though. Actually, before I say that, let me say this. The 10 duties of the king, the Dasavidha Rajadhama. Feel free to laugh at me, anyone. When a ruler follows the 10 duties of the king, the people remain loyal and the state thrives in peace. Charity, morality, sacrifice, honesty, kindness, all of these, again, are your social relationship. Your social relationship. And therefore, the morality of the entire country is purely based on your social relationship with each other. One of the things that we're going to miss here is just how fucking clever Taoism has been during all this. Like, seriously clever. Confucius participates with government. Taoism withdraws from worldly concerns and emphasizes the value of non-action, of wu-wei. Both fear the consequences of desire as a form of government. China has both parties covered. Confucianism is conservatism. Taoism is liberalism. I think that it's much more swathier difference, but just for the purpose of just having this conversation, you could look at it this way. However, Taoism has a secret weapon of their sleeve. This is why I love this book so much. When Confucianism was being thrown down everyone's throat, Taoism had no choice but to be born. And Taoism is a rejection of the state because it thinks the state is retarded. This is why I'm telling you that Lao Tzu is a grumpy old man. I just think that if you remember that, you can picture him yelling at the state, "Fuck you, state!" And that's really at the heart of Lao Tzu. If there's a book that you want on your shelf that you don't have, it is the Tao Te Ching. You will love this book. It is a toy. It is a toy that you will enjoy to read. It's not something you need to finish. It's not something that you need to understand or solve. You will have that book, you will open it to verse 67, and you will read 2 paragraphs, and you'll go, holy shit, that was fun as fuck. Buy the book. It's a great book. It is so good. And one of the reasons why it's so good is because Confucianism was so fucking woke. It was this culture of woke, of find your Shen, find your Ren, find your Li, find your Shi, and do your fucking job. Meanwhile, Taoism is like, fuck you and the horse you rode in on. No offense, horse. I'm sure you're a lovely creature, but fuck you guys. And that China... Confucian himself, I believe, I'm using the word Confucius here loosely because when you think about Lao Tzu, I don't necessarily think as a person. It's a lot like Moses, okay? But when emperor is, one of the things that Lao Tzu did is he tried to travel across the country. When the emperor saw that he was leaving, he said, dude, you can't leave. I need your wisdom first. You can go, but I need you to first write a book. How do I run my government? This is how Lao Tzu is seen. He's very much a wise, sage kind of a person. Lao Tzu was the birth of esotericism, the birth of secret thought, the birth of hiding in plain sight, the birth of revolution disguised as obedience. A picture I'm showing you is strips of bamboo. And these strips of bamboo have different Chinese characters that are written on them. And that this is actually the original Tao. The original Chinese puzzle was encrypted, and that ribbons would connect. This isn't actually decrypted what you're looking at. This is still encrypted. Ribbons would connect these strips, and that you would have to follow the ribbon to get to the next word. It's encryption. You can have a sacred text inside your home, and as long as it's encrypted with ribbons, no one will be able to accuse you of thinking subversively. You have a secret code written into the knots, the ribbons that connect the characters to each other. And keep in mind, the Tao Te Ching has no plurals. It has no punctuation. It's got no possessives. It doesn't even use fucking pronouns. So you have some of the most already meditatively, deeply esoteric things. And then you find out that when you collect these reeds and take them with you, that there's a secret language in the sense of where you drag the ribbons to connect the words gives you a different meaning. And this is the brilliance of China. Because China wanted a system, and I believe Lao Tzu told the emperor this. China wanted a system where people could disrespect and reject, not disrespect, but reject the proletariat. That they noticed in order for China to have a one world government, they would need a place at the table for the old man. This is the Tadaho, the man with snakes in his hair in the Iroquois Confederacy, right? You're making a place for the one who doesn't want to be there. And that by China controlling the subversive paradigm through the principles of connection, you end up with a state that is resilient, sound, upwardly mobile, and totally philosophically kick-ass because people still are going to do what they want. It's kind of like in prison. They're going to spread contraband. But we will end the contraband. If you try and end the contraband in prison, you're not going to have a prison for long. It's going to destroy itself. If you allow the contraband but turn your back to the contraband, you now have a system that works. You have a system that takes care of itself. And I think that when you look at Taoism, you're seeing how amazingly clever this system was. Now, Taoism is not going to lead you to burn yourself a lot. Most of the principles of Taoism are going to be much more based on the rejection of such notions. The Tao doesn't take sides. It gives birth to both good and evil, says verse 5. The master doesn't take sides. She welcomes both saints and sinners. The Tao is like a bellows. It is empty yet infinitely capable. The more you use it, the more it produces. The more you talk of it, the less you understand. Hold on to your center. The Tao is telling you to reject all societal thought and find your actionless self in the tepid bullshit that surrounds you. It is one of the most clear-cutting, straight to the fucking heart, find your center kind of philosophies around. And China wanted it there. It wanted it there. Verse 65, the ancient masters didn't try to educate the people, but kindly taught them to not know. When they think that they know the answers, people are difficult to guide. When they know that they do not know, people can find their own way. Remember Socrates, I know that I know nothing? Where do you think he got this idea from, ladies and gentlemen? Confucius was basically alive at the same time that people were rediscovering Plato, at least. These people were moving in the same audience, in the same orchestra, exchanging information, and we see that through the Christos or the Krishna or the Damas, this Baphomet figure, or all the others. We are stealing from each other all the time. Even Adam and Eve came from India. If you want to learn how to govern, says verse 65, avoid being clever or rich. The simplest pattern is the clearest. Content with an ordinary life, you can show all people the way back to their own true nature. Now, you and I are reading this, and one of the biggest things that I want you to realize is that you didn't actually know what it said. You would need a copy of these reads, and then you would need to know how to decode them. So when we look at what the Tao Te Ching is, I don't think we even know what it is. I don't think we even get to see what it is, because the esoteric nature of it would be exactly conducive to you finding your own path, which means, I can't prove this, but I would imagine that most of the early wise men that were practicing the Tao Te Ching were more like practicing Tarot, almost using augury, right? The watching of birds, meaning that they would slide the silk down to different patterns and they would have different interpretations by matching characters together. And that the patterns that led to the deepest kind of constellations to explode in your mind were the ones that were recorded in the verse. And that's really what we're seeing right now. It's literally one of my favorite books. I highly recommend it. Verse 72, when they lose their sense of awe, people turn to religion. When they no longer trust themselves, they begin to depend upon authority. This is beautiful. Therefore, the master steps back so that the people won't be confused. He teaches without a teaching so that people will have nothing to learn. Such a mic drop. Like, it's just so freaking dope. I'll read one more and then I know we're over time. Neglecting to praise the worthy deters people from emulating them. Neglecting to praise the worthy deters people from emulating them. Not prizing rare treasures deters a man from becoming a thief. Ignoring the things which awaken desire keeps the heart at rest. Therefore, the wise ruler does not suggest unnecessary things. This is a preaching to quietism. I'm bringing this up because side by side, I'm showing you two translations of the exact same verse. Exact same verse. And the reason why you're seeing such a vast difference in the verbiage is, number one, Chinese and English is fucking very different modes of even thought. But number two, the reads and the referencing to where those lined up, we don't always agree on. So the copy that you may buy today after this show from whatever, maybe I'll put a link in it. That way you guys can help the show if you want to buy that book. But you need that book on your shelf. But that book that you have on your shelf is simply one interpretation of it, and that you still will be able to read that and just kind of trip out on the Rubik's Cube nature of it. Just the again, it's a toy. It's a toy for consciousness. And if you end up in an old man state where you're rejecting society, it's probably because you have enough electricity consciously in your mind to not need the state, to not need to find so much Ren, and you're looking for something to move yourself into that next kolpa or to reach this next state. There's not a lot of work in Taoism where they're like, we have to escape, we have to do that. Wu-wei is really the opposite of escape. It really is the quintessential dude. Isn't that his name? The dude who wears a bathrobe. It's the purified conceptualization of wu-wei, of actionless action, of, hey man, you just do you and I'll do me. It's the perfect solution when you have an uptight Confucianistic system that's running the right side of the aisle, and then you have this other solution that's there to catch people on the left. This is how you run a government. And it works because the content is so rich. The honey inside the Tao Te Ching is exactly what the emperor needed this book to have. The honey inside Buddhism, the very heart of self-immolation, the Lotus Sutra, when we get to that, you're going to be like, what the fuck, James? How did this one verse cause hundreds of people to set themselves on fire? And the answer is that when you are sequestering desire and you're opening the tiniest possible hole for it, people will set themselves aflame to taste nature's honey. Have a great day.